Black Friday, 2:30 p.m. Westfield Mall, 4,000 shoppers, 12 exits sealed by armed men. The police declared it a hostage situation and called for backup. But the backup was already inside, disguised as the head of security who'd been preparing for this exact scenario for 6 years. From which city in the world are you watching this video today? If you enjoy stories where the predator becomes the prey, and where 6 years of preparation meets 12 minutes of pure warfare, consider subscribing. Your support helps bring more untold stories of warriors who never truly leave the battlefield. Marcus Kane had been head of security at Westfield Shopping Center for exactly 6 years, 4 months, and 11 days. He knew this because he counted everything: foot traffic patterns, seasonal security vulnerabilities, emergency response times, and most importantly, the tactical advantages and disadvantages of every square inch of the 2.1 million square foot complex. To the store managers and mall staff, Marcus was the model of professional security management. Always early, always prepared, always conducting unnecessary safety drills that kept them sharp but never explained why. His office was filled with evacuation charts, camera feeds, and communication equipment that seemed excessive for a suburban shopping center. What they didn't know was that Marcus Kane wasn't just a former Marine. He was Gunnery Sergeant Marcus Kane, Force Reconnaissance, 2nd Marine Division, with 8 years of the most dangerous covert operations the Corps had to offer. His official separation from the military had been routine. His unofficial reasons for choosing mall security were anything but routine. Marcus had been recruited by a program that didn't officially exist: Operation Sleeping Sentry. Former special operations personnel placed in high-traffic civilian locations, living normal lives while maintaining readiness for domestic threats that conventional law enforcement couldn't handle. For 6 years, Marcus had been waiting for a phone call that never came. Instead, the threat had walked through his front doors during the busiest shopping day of the year. November 29, 2:30 p.m. Westfield Mall was packed with over 4,000 Black Friday shoppers, families with children, elderly couples, teenagers, and everyone in between. The food court buzzed with conversation, stores overflowed with customers hunting deals, and the atmosphere was festive chaos. Marcus was conducting his routine patrol when his radio crackled with a report from Jenny Martinez, one of his junior security officers. "Marcus, we've got a situation at the north entrance. 6 men in maintenance uniforms just entered, but they're not on today's work schedule." Marcus felt the familiar tightening in his chest, the combat alertness that had kept him alive through 47 missions in hostile territory. Description: professional bearing, moving in formation, carrying large tool cases. They split up immediately after entry. Through his earpiece, Marcus heard similar reports from his other officers. South entrance, 4 men, same description. East entrance, 2 men. West entrance had been temporarily closed for maintenance by men no one had authorized. 12 exits, 12 men. Perfect mathematical coverage. Marcus activated his master security protocol, a system he had installed personally and never explained to his staff. Hidden cameras throughout the mall began recording to encrypted drives. Silent alarms connected to federal agencies, not local police, began transmitting. And most importantly, blast doors that could seal sections of the mall activated to standby mode. "All units, Code Silver," Marcus announced calmly. To his staff, Code Silver meant suspicious activity requiring increased vigilance. To Marcus, it meant enemy contact imminent. Prepare for combat operations. For the next 15 minutes, Marcus conducted a reconnaissance operation using the mall's extensive camera network. The 12 men had positioned themselves with military precision at every exit, turning the shopping center into a closed environment. They wore maintenance uniforms, but their equipment wasn't for repairs. Through careful observation, Marcus identified their weapons: compact assault rifles concealed in tool cases, communication equipment, and what appeared to be explosive devices for sealing exits if needed. This wasn't a robbery or random violence. It was a coordinated siege operation. At 2:45 p.m., the operation began. The apparent leader, positioned near the main entrance, pulled out a megaphone and addressed the crowd. "Ladies and gentlemen, remain calm and follow instructions. This facility is now under our control. Move to the center court area immediately." Panic erupted instantly. Thousands of shoppers began running in all directions, only to find every exit blocked by armed men. The festive Black Friday atmosphere transformed into terrified chaos as families were herded toward the mall's central court like cattle. Marcus watched from his security office as the men began organizing the hostages with disturbing efficiency. They separated adults from children, identified anyone who appeared to be law enforcement or security, and established clear fields of fire to control the crowd. Professional, military trained, and completely unaware that they had just activated a force Recon Marine who had been preparing for this exact scenario for 6 years. From his concealed security office, Marcus activated emergency protocols that his staff had practiced dozens of times without understanding their true purpose. The mall's public address system, lighting controls, camera networks, and even the music systems became weapons in his arsenal. His first move was psychological. Using the PA system, he began playing specific audio tracks, not music, but carefully selected sounds that would mask his movement through the building's extensive service corridors. The ambient noise of technical difficulties covered the sound of his footsteps as he began moving through areas of the mall the terrorists couldn't monitor. His second move was intelligence gathering. The hidden cameras he had installed provided angles the terrorists didn't know existed, allowing him to count their ammunition, observe their communication patterns, and most importantly, identify their mission commander. The leader was a tall man with Eastern European features, coordinating the operation with the precision of someone who had done this before. His team responded to hand signals and maintained discipline under pressure, definitely military trained, possibly former special forces from a hostile nation. Marcus realized this wasn't domestic terrorism. It was a foreign operation targeting American civilians, and he was the only person in position to stop it. At 3 p.m., Marcus began implementing tactics he hadn't used since Afghanistan. The mall became his area of operations, and every store, corridor, and service tunnel became part of his battle plan. His first target was intelligence. Using access codes known only to him, Marcus activated the mall's backup communication system and established contact with federal agencies. But he didn't request immediate assistance. He requested they delay any rescue attempts for 60 minutes. "This is Operation Sleeping Sentry Asset Bravo 7. He transmitted on an encrypted frequency. "I have visual on 12 hostile operators. Civilian count approximately 4,000. Request delayed response to allow tactical assessment." The response came immediately. "Bravo 7. You are not authorized for direct engagement. Maintain surveillance only until federal response arrives." Marcus looked at his monitors, where he could see families huddled together in terror, children crying, elderly people who couldn't understand what was happening. The official response would take at least 2 hours to organize safely. He made the same decision he had made in similar situations overseas. "Bravo 7 going dark," he transmitted. "Will re-establish contact when area is secure." Marcus began his operation at 3:15 p.m., using service corridors and maintenance tunnels that he had memorized during 6 years of routine security patrols. His first objective was to isolate the terrorists' communication network. The mall's central communication hub was located in a restricted area that only Marcus could access. Within minutes, he had identified the frequency the terrorists were using and began implementing electronic warfare tactics, jamming their radios at strategic moments to create confusion and disrupting their coordination. His second objective was weapons acquisition. As head of security, Marcus had access to the mall's emergency supplies, including riot control equipment that could be repurposed for combat operations. But more importantly, he knew which stores in the mall sold items that could be converted into weapons. The sporting goods store became his armory. Lockpicks he had carried since his Marine days gave him silent access to hunting rifles, ammunition, and tactical equipment. The hardware store provided materials for improvised explosive devices. The electronics store offered components for communication jamming. For 30 minutes, Marcus transformed from security guard to one-man special operations unit, preparing for an assault that would determine whether 4,000 innocent people lived or died. At 3:45 p.m., Marcus began Phase 2 of his operation, psychological warfare designed to destabilize the terrorist team's confidence and coordination. Using the mall's lighting system, he began creating random blackouts in different sections, forcing the terrorists to reposition and react to threats that didn't exist. The PA system played specific sounds at calculated intervals: footsteps, voices, equipment noise, making the terrorists believe they were being monitored by a larger security force. Most effective was his use of the mall's extensive camera network. By hacking into the displays throughout the building, Marcus began showing the terrorists images of themselves from angles they couldn't identify, letting them know they were being watched without revealing how or by whom. The psychological pressure began showing results. Radio chatter between the terrorists increased. Their formation became less disciplined, and most importantly, they began making tactical mistakes born of paranoia and confusion. At 4 p.m., Marcus made his first direct engagement. The terrorist guarding the east exit had become isolated from his team due to the psychological warfare tactics. Marcus approached through a service corridor that emerged behind a jewelry store, giving him a clear shot at an enemy who had no idea he was being hunted. The engagement lasted less than 10 seconds. Marcus used techniques from his Force Recon training: silent approach, immediate neutralization, quick concealment of evidence. To the other terrorists, their colleagues simply stopped responding to radio calls. 1 down, 11 to go. But now the enemy knew they were under attack. The remaining terrorists began moving with greater caution, establishing overlapping fields of fire and implementing counter-surveillance measures. The chess match had escalated to direct warfare. The mall became a battlefield unlike anything in Marcus's military experience. Instead of desert compounds or jungle clearings, he was fighting through stores filled with merchandise, corridors crowded with terrified civilians, and environments that changed dynamically as the enemy adapted to his tactics. His second engagement occurred in the department store. 2 terrorists had positioned themselves to control the escalators, giving them oversight of the main shopping area. Marcus used the store's layout to his advantage, moving through display areas and using mannequins and merchandise as concealment. The engagement was more challenging. 2 trained operators with clear sightlines and prepared positions. But Marcus had advantages they couldn't anticipate. He knew every inch of the terrain. He had studied their movement patterns for over an hour. And most importantly, he was fighting for the lives of innocent people while they were fighting for money or ideology. Both terrorists were neutralized within minutes, but not without cost. Marcus sustained a bullet graze to his shoulder, and the engagement alerted the remaining 9 terrorists to his general location. 3 down, 9 to go. But now they knew exactly who they were fighting. At 4:20 p.m., the terrorist commander made a tactical decision that changed the entire operation. Instead of continuing to hunt Marcus through the mall, he would force Marcus to come to him. "Attention security personnel," the commander announced over stolen PA equipment. "You have demonstrated impressive capabilities, but the game ends now. I am going to execute 1 hostage every 5 minutes until you surrender yourself." Marcus watched through his cameras as the commander selected a family with young children, positioning them in the center court, where Marcus could see them clearly. The psychological warfare had been turned against him. His desire to protect innocent life was being used as a weapon. For the first time since the operation began, Marcus felt the weight of impossible choices: surrender and save this family, but doom everyone else when backup plans were implemented. Continue fighting and watch innocent people die while he worked to save the majority. The decision was made for him when he noticed something the commander hadn't. The family he had selected included a man whose body language suggested military training. Marcus had been monitoring all the hostages for potential assets, and this individual had shown signs of combat experience. Using the mall's emergency communication system, Marcus sent a coded message to the man's cell phone, a message that would only be understood by someone with military experience. At 4:25 p.m., Marcus implemented his final assault plan. The message he had sent activated his impromptu ally among the hostages, Staff Sergeant Robert Chen, on leave from his deployment with the Army Rangers. The coordinated attack began with Marcus creating a diversion using improvised explosives in the food court. As the 9 remaining terrorists responded to the apparent threat, Sergeant Chen disabled 2 guards in the hostage area using hand-to-hand combat techniques. Marcus used the confusion to engage the command group directly. This was no longer covert operations. It was direct assault using every skill he had learned in 8 years of special operations. The engagement was intense and brief. Professional soldiers fighting in an environment that favored the defender, with innocent lives depending on precision and speed. Marcus used his knowledge of the mall's layout to create crossfires and eliminate escape routes, while Sergeant Chen organized the more capable hostages to provide support and protection for families with children. At 4:47 p.m., exactly 2 hours and 17 minutes after the siege began, the last terrorist was neutralized. The mall was secure. Casualties were minimized to 3 wounded civilians and no fatalities among the hostages. When local police and federal agents finally entered the building, they found a scene that defied explanation. 12 highly trained foreign operatives had been defeated by what appeared to be a coordinated military operation, but the only security personnel on site was a mall security chief who claimed he had simply hidden and called for help. The official report credited swift federal response and fortunate circumstances for the minimal casualties. There was no mention of Operation Sleeping Sentry, No acknowledgement of Marcus's military background, and no explanation for how professional terrorists had been defeated so comprehensively. Marcus returned to his role as head of security, filing routine reports and conducting normal operations as if nothing extraordinary had happened. His staff praised his quick thinking in organizing evacuation procedures, never suspecting they had witnessed a former Force Recon Marine conducting a solo assault operation. 3 weeks later, Marcus received a phone call from a number he recognized. "Effective immediately, you're being transferred to a larger facility," the voice said. "Shopping center in Las Vegas. Higher traffic, greater responsibility." "Understood," Marcus replied, looking around his office at the charts and equipment that had made the operation possible. "One more thing, Marcus. Excellent work on Black Friday. The program is being expanded." 6 months later, the new head of security at Westfield Mall was Elena Rodriguez, a former Army Special Forces medic with an impressive record in counterterrorism operations. To the staff, she seemed overly cautious about emergency procedures and obsessed with evacuation drills. Marcus had moved to the Forum Shops at Caesar's Palace in Las Vegas, where he managed security for one of the busiest retail centers in the world. His official duties included crowd control and loss prevention. His unofficial duties involved monitoring for threats that could target tens of thousands of daily visitors. Operation Sleeping Sentry had grown from an experimental program to a nationwide network. Former special operations personnel were positioned in shopping centers, airports, sports stadiums, and any location where large crowds created both targets and opportunities for coordinated attacks. The warriors who had served overseas were now serving at home, invisible guardians watching over American families as they went about their daily lives. They appeared to be security guards, maintenance workers, and customer service representatives. But they were soldiers, and they were ready. Marcus Kane walked through the Forum Shops during his evening patrol, observing tourists and shoppers enjoying their freedom to gather safely in public spaces. They had no idea that their security depended on former warriors who had traded desert combat boots for mall security uniforms, but who had never stopped being Marines. Some battles are fought in foreign countries to protect abstract principles. The most important battles are fought in shopping malls, protecting families who never know the war was happening. And sometimes the best weapon against terrorism is a Marine who looks like a mall cop. Final question: from which city are you watching this video today? If you enjoyed this story of hidden warriors protecting innocent families, subscribe to discover more tales of heroes who trade desert combat for suburban vigilance but never stop being soldiers.